Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Tomb Raider Underworld walkthrough. It's time to begin the DLC parts. So, basically, I think either very soon after Tomb Raider Underworld's release. So, well, it was a couple of months. Around about February time in 2009, they released 2 episodes or levels of downloadable content, but only on the Xbox 360 version because, you know, they're cheap. Well, not cheap buggers, but they're quite happy to take one particular company's cash if it gives them an easier ride. So, basically, I think Microsoft money hatted it, and they got the DLC, which was a little bit, bad business practice if you ask me, but there we go, they did it.
Why don't you call in at night? Whatever you're looking for will still be there tomorrow.
I somehow doubt it. My father not only claimed that this artifact creates thralls, but that he used a word carved into it to control the damned things. It's hardly something you'd misplace, yet it's nowhere to be found.
Maybe he left it in Thailand. What's the magic word?
I can't make it out. Wherever did you put it?
What the hell was that?
A rather big clue.
And so, here we go, it's time for Beneath the Ashes. Now, this is actually my first time playing through Beneath the Ashes, because when I first eventually played through Tomb Raider Underworld, I was obviously a very young kid, and I didn't really have it was basically an allowance. So I had to choose very carefully what I used it on. And also, trying to do all the Microsoft Points stuff was a massive hassle, because when we set up my 360, we did it as a kids account. We should never have done that, but we did. And so it was just a pain sorting it out. But I did manage to, well, because I got some Microsoft points with something or other. And I got the other DLC pack, Lara's Shadow, because I had found out that it was the longer DLC pack, and the one that's technically the more important one. That is most definitely the case. If you want the most gameplay, go for Lara's Shadow. But having said that, Beneath the Ashes is quite interesting as well. It isn't really relevant at all for plot other than explaining one bit of part way through Lara's Shadow. But it is a nice little fun DLC pack. Now at the minute we're just having a quick look through the journal entries. What's quite nice about these is that they tell you exactly what you need to do at each room, and also the order in which you need to go through things. Obviously this could make the whole pack rather easy, because they basically give you a guide as to what the hell you're meant to do to get through it. But considering most people will probably never even look at these journal entries, they probably won't even realise it's there. But I have to say, this DLC pack is deeply flawed. The the fact that it was only released on the Xbox 360 says it all, really. But it has a number of other problems other than that. One is the fact that it is so short. Now, going off of an IGN review of this, they said that you can beat the pack in about 2 hours. Now, while that is certainly the case. I mean, if you don't have a guide at all, it probably will take you about 2 hours. But with the help of a guide, you can cut that down to an hour. And obviously, for something that you're spending, I think it was 800 Microsoft points, so that's about $10 on an hour of content that has very little replay value is not great odds. Like, that's actually quite appalling. Having said that, this did come out in the time where dodgy DLC practices were in full swing. To be perfectly honest, they haven't really gotten better unless you are dealing with the likes of Nintendo, who, for the most part, seem to be doing a reasonable job with their DLC offerings, and actually making them worth a damn. But not only that, there's also quite a few kind of audio glitches in this. It's certainly a heck of a lot glitchier than the main game. I guess it's kind of to be expected, because they did kind of rush this out. But it was fun to finally be able to play through the damn thing, because yeah, like, the only thing that I think seen of it, I just had a quick look of the cutscenes and that was about it. So this was one part of Tomb Raider Underworld that I never got to experience. And it is fun. It's more Tomb Raider Underworld, which I'm perfectly fine with. And also it's very much in line with tomb raiding, because you're raiding... so we raided the Croft Manor crypt, and now we're raiding the tomb beneath the crypt. Which is slightly bonkers.
Video feed's distorted. Is it wet down there?
The bombing must have cracked the foundations. There's a lot of water coming in.
But yes, one thing that just really miffed me off is that while in cutscenes the subtitles will appear, in-game, nope, not a thing. I had a look in my settings and just, nope, absolutely nothing. Which is really, really, really mean. Because, I mean, having said that, there really isn't a lot of important stuff going on in that dialogue. It's literally just, oh, look at this place, this is slightly interesting, I wonder what I can do here. That's the general gist of what the dialogue ends up being. But having said that, it would have been nice to just have some... just something a little bit clearer, so that you could figure out what they were saying, because, as I said, the audio editing is... well, the fact that the audio glitches in this is poor, but they do also have the slight issue of sometimes the audio editing is just as poor as it was in the main game. I mean, that was mostly like songs just cutting off when they went to a load screen, which was really, really poor. And just kind of cut up the overall flow. It was a problem throughout the entirety of the Crystal Dynamics Tomb Raider trilogy. They really had a hard time getting that flow of narrative and getting the music to, you know, end when the cutscene ended, rather than just cutting the damn thing off. But I think they did improve come the Tomb Raider reboot, because they got a lot better at having because they had a fluid world, they were able to get that to work a lot better rather than levels and choosing your costume and all that jazz. Now, as I believe I mentioned at some point during the main walkthrough, I may not have done, but I'll mention it now. When you purchase either one of the DLC packs, so either Beneath the Ashes or Lara Shadow, not only do you get that particular level, but you also unlocked all the costumes. So all those bikinis, but also Classic Lara, Legends Lara, the Casual Explorer Lara that you see now, the People's Choice Lara. There were a couple of Fashion Winner things, different variants of the dry suit, and all that jazz. So you got that. You also got the ability to earn, I think it's about 125 achievement points or something along those lines. Might be 250. But the majority, basically all of the achievements that you could potentially unlock from both DLC packs came with just one. So if you got Lara Shadow, then you got the potential achievement points included in Beneath the Ashes, but you could obviously never get them until you bought Beneath the Ashes. It was a slightly dick move, but oh well, at least I finally got the opportunity to get those damn things. But yeah, so there wasn't a whole lot on offer for these things, and I mean, thankfully, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that pretty much all the costume DLC was free. Like, I mean, I know I've just said that you get it with buying one of the DLC packs, but I believe that you can potentially just get them all for free. Obviously, there is literally no point, because really, unless you are incredibly desperate to see Lara swimming around in hideous water in a bikini, there's not a whole lot there for you to play with, unless you wanted the People's Choice outfit or the fashion design swimsuit, or kind of just other stuff. Now, this is the water wheel room that was mentioned in Lara's father's journal, and you are going to be spending quite a bit of time in here, because the way that this level works is that you get to here, and then you're going to loop all the way back round. So that gate that I was looking through a moment ago, yes, we are going to reach there, and therefore be able to get some stuff that we couldn't access, or at least we can't access in the room at this moment in time. Because there's something that I think is at a much higher level than us, or at least there's something to do with having to come back here that allows us to access another bit of the level once we have done a bunch of other stuff. But what is slightly annoying is that you will be doing this particular climb quite a lot. Now, going back to the whole DLC only on the Xbox 360 issue. As I said at the start, it's dodgy. Because pretty much, well, from the word go, Tomb Raider was always a PlayStation franchise. I mean, it always came out on the PC, but basically it got quite a bit of its popularity from the PlayStation. And it was that way for a ridiculously long time. Like, all through the 90s and early noughties, all the games were PlayStation and PC. That was it. So, well, and then you had Legend and Anniversary, which were on all consoles that were available, mostly. So, I don't think anybody really had a problem with that. And really, there's no reason to have a problem with multi-platform releases. Because in the end, all that happens is that more people get to play the game, which is great. However, come Underworld, the fact that the DLC is only available to 360 owners, and I'm pretty sure that that is 100% foolproof. I don't think there is any way that you can get the DLC on PS3. I could be completely wrong on that, and you may in fact be able to access it. Oh no, it is exclusive to 360, which is just really, really, really dodgy. Because obviously, that completely disregards all of that PlayStation fan base. I mean, having said that, there's not really a whole lot here. But the fact that they are, or at least they were here, denied access to content that there is no reason at all they could not get working on the PlayStation 3. The only reason that they couldn't do it was because Microsoft paid them money. Whether to make the thing, which I suppose would be okay, but it's still a bit... or whether they just paid to get the exclusive rights to the DLC, which they've done stuff like that before. They are well known for it. And I mean, thankfully it is just DLC, but then you get to Rise of the Tomb Raider, and that whole absolutely ridiculous debacle. Like, that is a debacle that makes me furious. Because the Tomb Raider reboot was available on Xbox and PlayStation, well, Xbox 360 and PS3, and then was later re-released as the definitive edition on Xbox One and PS4. It's also available for PCs. So that was fine, great. Everyone gets to play. Whether you agree with the gameplay or not is a completely different matter. But then, Rise of the Tomb Raider got announced. And I'm pretty sure that when it got announced, Crystal Dynamics basically said, yes, it will be multi-platform, even though it was announced at the Xbox E3 conference. So, that was just like, great! Everyone's happy, everyone's gonna get to play the next Tomb Raider game. And then there was, I can't quite remember specifically what event it was, but Xbox announced that's it. At the Gamescom 2014 briefing, that Rise of the Tomb Raider would be released in late 2015, first on Xbox One and Xbox 360. Which just completely sent the Tomb Raider fanbase into a fury. Because you then got the standard absolute rubbish of, this will help us make the game better, and all that. Because, I mean, I think potentially what Microsoft did was that they funded a bit of it to be able to get those exclusive rights. But yeah, the Tomb Raider fanbase did not react kindly to that, and I completely understand why. Because the game at first was assumed, rightly or wrongly, I mean, I'm pretty sure they said that yes, it would be available to all. And people assumed that, which is fair enough. So to then go back on that and say it's exclusive to Xbox is just a real kick in the teeth. Because people like to support things on the consoles they like to support. And evidently the game was getting made anyway. It's not a case like Bayonetta to Bayonetta 2, where the first games were on Xbox 360 and PS3, and then the sequel was on the Wii U. That was a completely different situation because Bayonetta 2 would not exist had Nintendo not decided to fund it. So Microsoft and Sony had the option, or at least we assume they had the option, to fund a Bayonetta 2, and they chose not to. Whereas this is a different situation where content that we thought was going to be multi-platform was revoked. And then it just got messy. They did then go on to say that it was a timed exclusive, but they have not, to this day, and to this day meaning when I am recording this commentary, they have not stated how long that timed exclusivity is for. And basically that has turned a hell of a lot of people off getting Rise of the Tomb Raider. Because just by pure instinct of principle. And I think I'm perfectly down with that. I mean, I'm not getting the game on principle either, because I think that it was just a really scummy way of treating their fans. And also just the fact that the direction the series is taking is not sitting well with me. Like the complete redesign of Lara's face that seems to keep happening, which is taking... Well, it's moving Lara Croft to look a lot more like Camilla Luddington, which is fair enough, but it's making her very much not Lara Croft. Which is just a bit... oh. So, yeah. Crystal Dynamics have massively gone down in my estimations. And you can see that the start of that slightly scummy, not particularly pleasant exclusivity demon rearing its head here. I'll say that was a nice, impressively long rant about a very simple topic. And I'm quite glad because, having said that, Beneath the Ashes is a little bit dull. It's fun, don't get me wrong. But it's very much more of the same. Lara's Shadow is quite a bit more exciting. Like, very much quite a bit more exciting. There's all sorts that happens in Lara's Shadow. Like new gameplay and new types of puzzles and all that jazz. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some interesting grappling hook work, grapple line work that you have to do in this game, which is quite cool, but it doesn't happen until towards the end. So the next part, basically. But, yeah, this is just sort of more of the same. It's fun, but there could be more going on. And I guess there's also the slight issue of, I mean, all of the different rooms in this place do have their own identities. I mean, you have the water wheel room, which has got the massive imposing water wheel. There's a room that we are, I believe, working our way towards now, which is quite impressive. But most of the time you are just going to be wandering around in this just slightly dingy brick corridors and stuff, which is just a bit I mean, one thing that I'm not sure how it works with this DLC is, obviously, we started and I didn't have the same amount of health as I did at the end of the game. I don't know whether if, when you finish the game, if you load up that save file and then start the DLC, which is perfectly possible to do, whether you retain that amount of health, or whether you just go to this set amount. It's not a problem, because really you don't need any more health. You will be picking up a relic along the way, but it has absolutely no bearing on anything whatsoever other than an achievement. Well, two achievements, because I think there's an achievement for getting all the treasures, and an achievement for getting all the treasures and the relic. So, there is that. But, yeah. After the IGN review that I was talking about earlier is kind of spot on in its analysis of Beneath the Ashes, because it's basically like the story's intriguing, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And in fact, sort of, apart from the small bit you get at the start, it literally goes nowhere. You just have a lot of gameplay, which is great, but still. Graphics are fine, it's the same stuff as Tomb Raider Underworld, so it's great. Sound, it's not a lot of talking, mostly environmental effects, so it's a bit and gameplay, it's a bit easy, and everything else is just a throwback to older titles, so if you know what you're doing in Tomb Raider, you're kind of set, and there's really not a lot of lasting appeal. And once you've got all the treasures, there is literally, well, the treasures and the relic, and beat it, there is literally no reason to come back. So they gave it a 5 out of 10 because it was very mediocre. And I think that is an accurate way of describing this. To be perfect, I'd probably give it more of a 6 out of 10, because it's not terrible, it's just, I mean, I say it's a little bit better than very mediocre in average. Like, there's decent stuff going on here and decent, clever puzzles. It's just that it's a little bit not worth it, the money that it costs. Which is a shame. And I think we're about to kill either more spiders or more English knight thralls. But what's quite cool is we have now worked our way all the way in a nice little circle. So we are through the room where that grate was in the water wheel room, which is just really awesome. I will also point out that there is a surprising amount of combat in this, although the amount of combat will reach its zenith in Lara's Shadow. I think they took the requests for more combat in the game a little bit too seriously. Because Lara Shadow goes absolutely balls to the wall with its combat. But there we go, we've killed those thralls. It's time to make our way, I think, or at least grab a few more treasures, and then we've got to make our way to the top, or something along those lines. It's time to finish this thing, hopefully. But I assume it's going to take us quite a while.